Booze and boards, boards and booze. Bad guys at large, it's bad news. No beer this time, so we won't lose. We found their lair, they'll pay their dues. The town is saved, so now we booze. Booze and boards, boards and booze. With Mickey and Jeb.
Hey Mickey, you fixed your light bulb, right?
Why, was it broken?
Nope. Well, yeah, it was. Now it's unbroken. I didn't have an intro. That was the best I could come up with.
Yeah, that's why we don't let Jeb do the jokes around here, because he's not funny. Maybe I'm not either, but I think I am.
Oh, he tells me that I'm not funny. So.
All right, so if you couldn't guess, today's game is Unbroken. This is unique in that it is specifically a solo game,
right? Not
multiplayer, not co-op, just solo, and it is it's a one-player game, not 1 to 4 or anything.
Right,
20 to 30 minutes and ages 13 and up.
Yep.
All right, so this is a little background. So this is a game that
game designer is Artem Safarov, and we actually got to talk to him. But continue. I just wanted to throw in the designer
you're allowed
with
to talk.
The thing.
Okay. So
he let me talk.
That's where I was going with it. Was
okay.
The little background. One of our videos we actually talked about this. It was a review of Origins last year. But anyways, for once, this is a game that Jeb backed.
Yep.
Mickey did not. But after playing it at Origins, Mickey jumped on the website and ordered a copy come at the same time as the backers, or
good old late pledge.
Right, late pledge. Yeah, there's a good word. Glad I could not think of it. And so it is not that I play a lot of solo games, but I feel like it is like obviously after playing it, not giving away too much on the review, I wouldn't have bought it if I didn't like it.
I think you seeing it in person helped you actually be like, I'm going to buy it.
Right. So anyways, it's like a dungeon crawl theme, fighting monsters, things like that. You can be different types of characters. You try to find stuff or earn stuff or build stuff.
Yeah, I think the story's like you survive some kind of attack and now you're trying to get out of this dungeon or whatever. Yeah, and you fighting monsters.
Something was collapsed or whatever, and you're trying to get out. Actually, it's not a bad little story, background story, but publisher is Ultima Games, distributed by Golden Bell, and I just talk about this real quick right now. So if you followed this Kickstarter at all, there's a big hoo-ha. The distributor really screwed up bad. And we'll just kind of leave it at that, but it was not a good situation, so have no idea if there'll be more of this or not. So, you can go try to find out some of the stuff by yourself, because I'm not going to get into all that. But anyways, so long story short, we do have a copy. We are going to show you how to run through it. So even though it'll be both of us talking and kind of looking like we're playing cooperatively, we're not. Although you could play like we were if you did have, a spouse or whatever. It's just not really made to do that, but you can.
The only other thing I had to add is that there's 3 difficulties in the rulebook, and for this main episode, we did normal. And then we also recorded a difficult one that will be put up at some point. I don't know if I'll put it up with the video or not, but...
all depends on if he's lazy or not.
Yeah, that's how it usually happens.
Do I feel like editing, or do I feel like playing the bongo drum game? What's it called?
Taiko Drum Master.
Taiko Drum Master. I know, some Japanese thing he plays. It's actually pretty fun, but I am going to make fun of him for playing it.
My dad was making fun of me because I showed him that when he came up. He was like, "What are those for?" And I was like, "Drums." And he's like, "Don't tell me you're drumming." And I was like, "Let me show you what I do with these."
Did he play?
He didn't play. He watched me and he was like, "Oh, that's pretty cool."
Oh, okay.
So.
Yeah. All right. So I don't know if you don't have anything else. I guess we can jump into components.
Yep. All right. We're back with the components for Unbroken.
Yep.
And right now we've got stuff kind of scattered around, but the first thing we are going to show you are the 2 tracker boards.
So the 2 tracker boards here and here are your main information, basically, besides what cards you're going to get throughout the game that you're going to use. You're going to use these a lot. So this side is basically all, well, I guess, your resources.
Pretty much resources.
Okay, and then this is kind of the game's resources, because this is the time and this is the monster. So this side is, you can kind of look at as what's working against you, and this is all your resources plus the other things that you'll earn during the game. But even the things that you earn are probably going to use something on this track.
Right. Alright, next up are, well, we'll talk about the cubes that go with them, because there's 2 color cubes. There are the red cubes.
Basically that side.
And they'll be put into the trackers sections on those. And the blue cubes for the to track the resources on that side.
And if you can't tell by looking at it, they are grooved, so...
Yep, they fit in and they can
kind of slide back and forth. So, you know, you can bump it a little bit. I mean, you can't bump it hard, but sliding your hand, you know, just brushing it is probably not going to mess you up too much.
Alright, so we'll talk about some sheets now. So the first sheet is the character sheet.
Okay, so the game comes with 4 characters and some blank stuff, which we never use, but you can, if you're a creative type of person, there are some blank cards that come with the game for just about every component. So anyways, here are your characters. You have a brawler, and you have a sneak, a hunter, and a sage. They are all double-sided. No difference in the side other than boy-girl. Okay, so those are your characters. They all have some kind of unique ability to the way they play.
Next up are the monster sheet.
The monster sheets are the largest cards in the game.
As you can see by comparison, that's a normal card, that's the monster card.
Right, and so there are 3 levels of monsters. 4 levels of monsters, I can't count. But anyways.
And on the back it says monster level, right, and then the number of slashes.
Yeah, so these are the level 1s, and then up 4 slashes is level 4. You will need to know the particular monster number on them, so like Jeb said, they actually have a number in the middle of them. That
for level 4 it's up top, but in the lower levels it's kind of on the bottom.
Okay.
Yeah, down there.
Okay. That's explained in the rule book, but that's important too, because you randomly pick the monster. So if you roll a 3 then, or a 4, you would pick this monster for level 2, and that's how that works. And we'll get into a little bit more of that later when we go over the cards in more detail.
Alright, so next up are the weapon sheets.
So you always start with bare hands, but here are what the weapons look like. They have like pictures of weapons on them, and then on this side they have their attacks on them. Now there are a few with these brown tops that are advanced weapons, so they take a little more resources to get to. Yep. And we'll go over that also.
And the last sheets are the score pad and the achievement sheets, which are kind of just, they're not completely necessary, but it's a way to keep track of the score for each game that you play, and then if you want to keep track of your achievements, you can do that as well.
Yep. And then there's more on the back here. Yep. So there's a ton of stuff that, again, this being a solo game, you can, challenge yourself to do, hey, I'm going to try to do this, and see if you can. Or you could play the game, then look over it to see if you qualified for anything, right, too. Probably a little harder if you pick one and try to go for it, but that's besides the point.
Next up are the reference sheets.
Okay, so
And these are kind of like flow diagrams.
Right. So there's kind of 3 reference sheets. So you have 2 flow charts. If you can see those, I'll put them side by side. And then you have 1 personal, just to remind you what things are called.
And then on the back side is the action guide.
Actions.
Yeah.
So these are kind of like generic things that you can do well, not all the time, but when you're allowed to take them.
And then for the quick start reference sheets, there is a fox.
So you can move him down to know where you are while you play the game.
Yep, so you don't lose your spot.
And then you just, when it's time to fight the monster, you just jump him over to this path and start going down to see what happens.
Yep. Alright, so next up we'll talk about the cards in the game. And there are 3 different types of cards. So the first card is the encounter cards. And there's a lot of them.
Yep. This is the main card that you're going to use as you play. You're going to do something with this deck every single turn. So they're basically just a lot of different
And if you don't do anything with them,
things.
you might be playing it wrong.
No kidding. So just, you know, a lot of different stuff, a lot of different names, some nice artwork on them. And again, we'll go over what everything means on them in a minute.
Yep. Next up are skill cards.
Skill cards. And as you would have guessed, these are skills that you can pick up that make you a better character throughout the game.
The encounter and the skill cards will be randomized, so you shuffle those decks. The next card, though, the condition cards, you don't shuffle this deck because the conditions are given to you at certain points, and you specifically look at which condition you gain.
So, just as an example, this is the weakened card, this is a crippled card, this is an amnesia card, panicked, you get the idea. So, if something in the game said, you're this now, then you just dig through the condition thing, find it, and attach it to yourself.
And there's 2 last things. One is the die that comes with the game, and it's a custom die where instead of the pips, there's slashes.
It's actually they're pretty nice and bold. It's not one of those unique die that you're like, what number is that?
Right.
They did a good job. Nothing's mushed together. You can clearly see how many slashes are on each side.
Yep. And then the last thing is something we have a question about, and that is the bag that came with it.
So there's a bag, and we used it when we got our demo at Origins. We just can't remember which cards that he put in the bag. I remember specifically they had cards in the bag, and I want to say it was the skills. Why, I don't know, and I could be totally wrong. Maybe it was the encounter cards and you can pick from anywhere in the deck. I have no idea. You don't need it, really.
Yeah, you don't have to use it.
And the setup thing doesn't even say anything about it. Right. And as a matter of fact, it might just be a bag for the beads, and I could just, or all the little components instead of having to use the plastic. I honestly don't remember. I feel like he might have put cards in it, and then I could be remembering a totally different demo for all I know.
It's been a year ago.
So I'm not even going to say that that's 100% true. I just kind of remember something, but
all we know is that it came with the game, and you can use it however you want.
That's right.
All right, and that's everything for components. So let's go into setup. So the first thing you're going to do is place the trackers next to each other, as shown in the book. So you
book.
You don't have to, but I mean, the way the book has it set up is kind of helpful. So
yeah, it actually is a good setup the way they tell you to set it up. But you might be limited by space of your table and need to shuffle stuff around. As long as it's comfortable for you, this is the stuff that needs to be out.
Yep. So after you place the trackers on the table, you're going to shuffle the skill deck and shuffle the encounter deck and place those as shown, or however you want. I'm not gonna keep saying that. I'm just gonna say put them on down. So.
Alright, so I'm just gonna place the skill deck right there for now. Shuffle, encounter, And we're going to put it up here. I assume you can still see, Jeb.
Yep. Then you'll want to put the conditions on the board, so you can just
probably put them over there by the skills within easy reach.
And then the monsters, you do not want to shuffle these because it's kind of a pain to look through them again.
No, we always restack them so that they're in order.
Yep.
And then you can just set these off to the, well, I forget where. I think we put them up here.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yep. Next up, you are going to pick your character and place the character card.
Alright, there's the brawler, so...
That was pretty easy. You are going to place the bare hands card face up, and then the weapons deck below it. So I think we had this here, and that there. And then we had the fists there, and then the weapons can go above it or below it or whatever.
I think I had it to the side, my guy a little lower, but it does, again, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So, just... so the weapon-wise, this isn't shuffled or any particular order. You can just set that within reach somewhere. Some of this stuff you can actually even keep in the box if you don't want it all out.
Right. Then you are going to put down the action guide and the reference sheets. So the action guide we just kind of had over here so we could see what we're doing. And then the reference sheets.
And we'll put our little fox over there too.
Yep. You put them on the first spot. Alright, next up you are going to start putting on the cubes in the areas where they need to go. So, the red ones, we only need 3 of them, so I'll let Mickey put them there. Gave him 4.
So the red ones are pretty much this side of the track. The time tracker is pretty easy because each level it's marked. So there's a slash mark for the first level, there's a slash mark for the second level, slash mark for the third level, and slash marks for the fourth level. So that one's easy, so that just goes on that slash mark.
Yep, and then the monster stuff, the shield and the health, it's at 0 because...
there's no monster yet.
Right. And then next, you're going to put all the blue cubes out.
So the game's really nice. You get 0 resources to start.
Yep. In easy mode, just to note, you would roll a die, and then whatever you rolled, I guess you would get 1 resource of it. So I assume they meant like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, I guess, is a random or wild card or something. I don't know exactly. I'd have to look in the book. But
right. We didn't play on that, but it's an option if you want to look it up.
Yep. And then you are going to start with 13 effort.
Okay.
And that's for easy and normal mode. In hard mode, you would start with 10. And then the last 2 are the medium and strong efforts, which you start with 0. And then 1 more cube because...
you get a cube for your character. So it's your character is... we'll call it level 1 because he's on the level 1 monster. So basically these cubes are your resources to use your abilities on your card. You have to spend one of those to do one of these things. So just note that your hero abilities are not unlimited.
Right. And then the game would be way too easy.
And a dice within easy reach.
And that's everything for setup. So let's talk about how the game plays, right? So it's going to be 4 levels to the game. You start at level 1. Once you finish level 1, you go to 2, then 3, then 4. So each level, there's going to be 2 phases. So the first phase is called the travel phase, which you would use the quick start reference up here. That's the bluish one. And that contains everything that happens in the travel phase. So we'll talk about that one first. The first thing you are going to do is the preparation step, which is actually listed on there. And it says to take as many general or travel actions as you want.
And then you do a check after each time you do one of those actions, and you ask yourself if this time marker has gone down to 0 or not.
Right. So the general and travel actions are all listed on the actions guide, so we can talk about those real quick.
So, in case we haven't said it yet, because I'm not sure if we did, but when we start referencing the resources in the game, if you can, hopefully you can see. So this guy up here that looks like a fox, this is cunning. The knife is metal. The piece of wood is wood. The turkey leg is food. And this chalice, I believe, is a treasure.
Yep.
Okay. And if you're like Jeb and I, you're going to call these fists through the whole game.
Yeah.
So we call this regular fist, spiky fist, flame fist. But in actuality, this is a small effort. This is a medium effort. And this is a large effort. So we will try to use the correct terminology throughout the game.
Mickey will try to.
Yeah, because Jeb won't.
Nope.
I will try to use the proper terminology. The hourglass indicates that you should be using this track. This symbol is a shield, which applies to monsters. You may see them on your card because you're going to need to break a shield to get to the monster.
Yep.
And this is obviously a heart, which is the life of the monster. Okay? Yep. So those are the symbols throughout the game. There are no surprise symbols on the cards. What you see here is what you're going to be playing with.
Yep. Alright, so for the prep step, which is what I call it, you can take the general actions or the travel actions. So let's talk about those since you know what all the different resources are.
Right, so a lot of the actions on here are being able to manipulate your efforts into different efforts or into different resources. Okay, so focus. You can spend 4 small efforts to get a medium effort.
And to do that, you just move it down 4,
right,
and then move the
so
medium.
I go 1, 2, 3, 4, slide it to there, and then slide this up 1.
Yep.
Okay, so not a great exchange rate, but you can do it. Okay, then the next one is called inspiration. You can spend 2 medium efforts to get 1 large effort. So if that was on 2, I'd spend those 2, and then I can slide that up 1. Simple enough.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Plan is spend 4 small efforts, and I can get a cunning. So I could spend 4 of these again, slide that over 4, slide this up 1. I now have a cunning. Okay. On your weapon card, you can do it. You could take the general action called craft. So you look at your weapon card, and right below there are tracks to making a better weapon. So your bare hands, everybody always starts with bare hands. So you're going to either be able to take the track to go to a club or a track to get to a knife. So in general, you probably can, I don't know if you can see this real well or not. Hopefully you can. So going for a club, it would cost me 4 pieces of wood, 1 small effort, and 1 time.
That's 3 pieces of wood.
What did I say?
4.
Sorry.
That's fine.
And then if I wanted to make a knife, it would cost me 1 metal, a medium effort, and 2 time. So this one's a little bit tougher to make in a way. Kind of will depend on how your encounters go. But that's how crafting works. You look at the weapon, you see if you can do it, and then you do it. Alright? Orienteer.
This is a travel action.
This is a travel action. Everything else was a general action. We have 2 travel actions that we can do. So, Orienteer, you spend 1 small effort, and you reveal 2 additional cards during exploration. Now, we haven't gone over exploration yet, but that's drawing from this pile, so that'll let you draw 2 extra. You inherently always draw 2, so basically you'll get to draw 4. When we go over that, you'll see why it's important. And then the last thing is called the scout action, and it is also a travel action. So on the scout action, you for level 1, you spend a small effort and 1 time, and then you roll the die and then you get to reveal that monster. And that monster that you rolled the die for is the monster that you are going to encounter. Okay? And it just works its way up. The next level you have to spend 2 small efforts and 2 times. On the 3rd level you have to spend a cunning and a time. And on the 4th level, if you want to see your bad guy first, you have to spend a cunning, 2 small efforts, and 2 time. So pretty expensive to actually be able to look at your final encounter.
Yeah.
But it is an option. So those are all the general actions that you can do. You'll find that, at least in Jeb and I's experience, that the two main, well actually, for the most part, you're going to orienteer probably, and when you can, you're going to craft a weapon. You're probably not going to do the other stuff if you can avoid it because it's expensive, except for maybe the scout. The scout has a pretty good payoff. Everything else,
the conversion stuff is kind of like the generic conversion in other games where it's like you're getting the worst ratio.
Right. Yeah. You didn't get. You went to the shady salesman. He jacked up the prices, or whatever. Okay.
All right. So that's for the preparation step. You would do as many of those actions as you want or can afford to until time reaches 0. And once you're done with the preparation step, you will go to the decision step. And that's only if your time hasn't reached 0.
Is it on 0? And the answer is no. So on no, I just slide down. See, no's right there. Slide down. So now it's step 2, and it's the decision step.
Yep. And for this one, you ask yourself, are you going to fight the monster now? So if yes, you'll move over here, which will tell you to go into the combat phase. But we're not going to do that yet. We're going to say we're not ready, so we're going to say no. So when you say no, you move down to the exploration step.
Right.
And
this is the heart of like between this and fighting a monster. This is the heart of the game right here.
Yep. So what you are going to do is reveal 2 encounter cards, and if you were paying attention earlier, Orienteer said you would get 2 extra. So this is where that would come into play.
Right.
So right now, if you didn't Orienteer, you'd only draw 2 encounter cards. Or you reveal them.
Right. So what that means is you flip over 2 cards. Okay. So here's 2 cards. Here are how to read all the encounter cards because they all look the same. The first thing that you'll notice is the hourglass. This is how much time you have to spend in order to do this card. Okay. If you're piecing this together, spending time, remember that this step up here asks you, did the time tracker reach 0? Guess what? This thing's going to keep moving down. Eventually it's going to hit 0, and it's going to trigger this that you have to answer yes. It's going to force you to move to a different part.
Well, if you hit 0, you get ambushed. You can go into battle before it hits 0, and then you're not ambushed. So that's kind of where the trade-off is.
Yep. And then the next part of the card is going to be what the effects get you. Alright, so this one, spend nothing. So that means I don't have to spend any resources except the time.
Yep.
And I gain a cunning.
So the first thing you would do is pick which card you are choosing. So Mickey said he's picking the one with the 2, so you would discard the other card. And then now on here it says, are you going to choose to resolve the encounter or are you going to rest?
Right.
So now you would pick whether you want to use the card for what it has on it or are you going to use it to rest.
Okay. So when Jeb talks about using it, so that means doing what's down here.
Right.
When Jeb talks about resting, you can always rest with a card. And basically what that means is you convert the time you spent doing nothing to making a small effort. So you rested up, you got more strength.
Yeah.
So if I wanted to rest, I wouldn't get anything down here. I discard this card and move this down 2, and I move this up 2.
Right.
That's how you rest. Okay. Mm-hmm. However, I want some resources at the beginning of the game, so I'm going to spend these 2 time, move this down, and gain 1 cunning.
Alright, so just to point something out, technically what you do is you gain whatever, like, so this one you would gain the cunning, and then the next step on the flowchart says to lose the time. So Mickey had done it where he lost the time, then gained it. It doesn't matter too much. I don't think we ran into anything that actually...
No, but I mean, Jeb's just showing you exactly how it goes down the flowchart. Right. And, I mean, you're going to end up, like, in my mind, I'm going down the card. Do this, gain this. And like he said, we never ran into a problem where order actually made a difference, but we do want to point it out that they broke it down into such simple things that they were like, okay, do your card. Okay, don't forget to do your time. My thought process was, I'm going to get this stuff and then I'm going to forget the time and I'm not going to look at that. So just spend the time first, well, I mean, or that's big cheating.
The top down makes sense because that's how you read cards.
Most of the time, yeah. So either way, just keep that in the back of your mind how the official way goes, because Jeb is definitely correct. That's how they have it worded.
Alright, so Mickey did the encounter, and then the next thing we would do is lose the time, which you already did. And it says, does the time tracker reach 0? Is it a yes or a no? Right now it's a no. So this would go down to go back to the preparation step. And that just puts him right back up top. And we would just do that all over again until a battle starts. So.
But for another example, because we didn't do any, we just jumped right into the encounter thing. So, like we pointed out earlier, as a general action, you might orienteer because it doesn't actually cost that much. So this is when you would spend something even before you got to the encounter deck.
Yep.
So I'm going
to... in the prep step.
Right. This is something you would do in the prep step. Because I don't have any resources, so I certainly can't craft a new weapon, but I want to see more stuff. I don't want to take one. I want to have the best possibility of seeing what I can see. So I'm going to orienteer. So now I spend my effort to orienteer before we go in, and I'm going to say, okay, now I don't want to do any other prep stuff. Now I orienteered, so I get to reveal. Sorry.
Just by the flowchart.
Okay.
Decision step. You're not fighting the boss.
I'm not going to fight the monster.
And then
I'm going to go to the exploration.
Yep.
And now I get to reveal. Since I decided to orienteer, obviously I'm not going to fight the monster.
Right.
But it does have that step. So now I get to...
So normally he'd flip 2, but since he orienteered, he gets another 2.
So some of the stuff that I wanted to point out now that we have a really nice mix of cards, and this was totally by accident too, that was really good, is that notice that there's a 1 time, a 2 time, a 3 time, and a 5 time. Obviously, there's some really nice stuff to be had with the higher times, but if I'm getting really close to 0, I want to not bust to a 0. So it's kind of, there's a little bit of a push your luck with the encounter cards, and you get to see more things with the orienteer. But if you don't use that, if I would have just drawn these 2 cards, I have to get rid of 3 or 5 time no matter what, because you have to do something, whether you rest or whether you do the action. An important thing to note is even if I'm at 1, I can still do the 5 card, because the way it's worded in the rule book is that if you are 0 or below, indicating to Jeb and I that you could still do this action, but the payoff's gonna, well, the result is you are going to be ambushed by the monster. Okay? So, at this point in the game, since I don't have a lot of time, I would probably do one of these smaller ones. Even I might do that one too, because that's some pretty good stuff, and I did end up getting a cunning earlier, so I actually do have the ability to do that, and that's some really nice stuff. But if I was playing it safe, I would probably tick 1 off so I could see some more cards and slowly build up. I don't know. Depends on how I was feeling. So hopefully that's pretty clear on the way that goes. If it's not, well, like we say in a lot of our videos, watch the first 5 minutes of us play, even 10 minutes, whatever. You'll get an idea of how these things flow. And honestly, when we start the game, Jeb does a pretty good job of forcing the flow chart, because he has to keep stopping me because I'm going too fast. And you will
quick,
you will too once you got the flow of the game. You're just you'll be drawing these just left and right, and knowing when you need to stop for a second to do the other thing. So
there is one other thing, that there are cards, encounter cards, that say spend, and it says you must commit to the next encounter. And when that happens, I looked it up in the rules, and it says that you only draw one card your next encounter, and you have to resolve it.
Oh, I did not know that. That's pretty nasty.
It was a question we came up.
Yeah, but I just thought it was just do a normal encounter. I didn't realize it was one card. That's very, very risky. Oh, the other thing I meant to say, because our first set of cards were both spend nothing, is that most of these have a cost. So this one, I have to spend one of my cunning to get these 3 things. So I'd push this down and then up the other ones. Same with this, I'd have to spend a food. And same with this, I'd have to spend a small effort. I have no food. I probably wouldn't have done this. So I would have left. That one definitely would have got discarded. Then I would have made a choice between the things that I could do. Bringing us to the point of, what if you do have all cards that have a spend requirement that you have no resource? As Jeb pointed out earlier, do not forget that you can rest, and you must rest if you have nothing else to do.
Right. I think you guys get the general idea of how the travel phase works. So the combat phase is the next large phase that happens, and that is either going to happen willingly, where in the decision step you say, I want to fight the monster, so you go ahead and start the combat. And the other way is if that's 0, and whenever on the flow chart it says, are you at 0, it'll say, go to the combat phase.
Just to be clear, what Jeb's pointing out is when this little guy gets here and you're on that decision step, this is the point where you look at your time and you decide if you're going to risk it. Because if you end up at 0, you're getting ambushed rather than just being able to get to the monster. So if I'm still here at this decision step, I can say I want to fight the monster and there's no penalty against me. If I push my luck, hoping for a 0 time card,
and you get something where you have to spend
the time, I'm getting ambushed. So just to be clear, because I feel like the first time you play, you might not, that just might not make sense, and it's like, so you got to watch where you are on the track and how risky you want to get with this deck.
All right, so let's say you got ambushed. So somewhere along the way, you're at 0, and it says, does the time tracker reach 0? If it did, which the example is it did, it says go to step 1A, so you would take your fox and move it over here to the ambush step. And what the ambush step is you roll a d6 to determine the monster. So we're level 1 right now, so Mickey got a 4?
Yep.
So he would look through the level 1 monsters and get the number 4.
And we have these in order, but I will always double check to make sure that the 4 is on there. So I do have the 4 monster, which is right. You probably can't see it, but it does match the die. And the back of it is a level 1.
All right.
So you place that in front of you so you can see them. And I have a Cobalt Crafter, and it's a Snark. I don't know if they're ever going to use flavor text for anything.
The next thing you do is set the stats. So
so the stat board starts with a shield. The shield, if it had any, would be up in this area. It does not. So that stays at 0. Then I look and see he has a health of 3. So the health marker will go up to a 3.
And then the next thing you do is reset the time tracker. So right now you would set it to the next level.
Right.
So he's on level 1 right now. So you move the time tracker to the level 2 time.
Right. This might seem weird, but it's a little bit important, because during battle and some other things, you could actually spend time even before you get to the next round, either by them screwing you over and taking it, or you using some ability that actually requires you to use a time. So what we do is we look for the 2/ and we put it right there.
Yep. And then the last thing in the ambush step is to apply the ambush effect that is on the monster.
So the ambush effect for this monster says the kobold ignores your first attack.
Ooh, great.
So it doesn't matter what you do, it has no effect on him. So you're probably not going to do anything that does damage. You're probably going to see if you have some sort of skill or ability that might help you later on. And if you don't, then you're just going to get punched in the face first.
Right. A side note, kind of like the other path to take is not being ambushed.
Right.
And
so
for that one, the fox would go over to this one, 1B, which is the trickery step. And for that, it's kind of similar. It's just you don't get the negative effect.
Yeah.
So the trickery step, you roll the D6. Mickey already did. You set the stats. He did. You set the time track. You did. And then you choose whether or not you want to trick the monster. So the key is this only happens when you're not being ambushed.
Right.
So it's either you get ambushed or you do trickery.
Right. So backing it all the way up, we made the decision before we hit 0 to encounter him.
Right.
That means you don't get ambushed. Okay. Hopefully that's clear. I don't know how better we could say
I'm trying to reinforce it so you don't get it
it's
mixed up.
Yeah, it's just...
If you get ambushed, you can't trick them.
Right.
And if you trick them, you don't get an ambush effect.
Exactly. But the point of trickery is that if you flip a monster and you're looking at your resources and you're like, there is absolutely no way I can beat him, and you didn't get ambushed, then there's something usually down here under trickery that says what you can do, and you don't have to encounter this monster. You move to the next phase. However, you get no reward.
Right. You skip the reward phase.
You skip the reward phase. Now, that could keep you alive, but the rewards are pretty good.
Yeah.
So anyways, in this case, it would be spend either a wood or a metal, and I would just avoid the kobold. So this is also a good time to go over this card in a little bit more detail. We already went over the life. Or the stats, rather. This is all the stats. The shields would be up here too. The ambush effect, the trickery of effect, some fluff here. Okay, this part of the card right here is super important to read. There are some abilities and
I think it's either response or passive.
Or passive. Sometimes I think it's both.
Oh yeah, there's some.
So very, very important here. These can make the monsters, pretty difficult. Actually, some things hurt the monster themselves, but they're usually pretty bad. And then there are all the sides of the die. So when he has his turn, he rolls, and then you go over and you just read what it is, and that's what happens to you. And then if you are able to defeat him, then you get these rewards. Alright, so that's the monster card, and now Jeb's going to elaborate on a few things.
Yep, so right now we're in the trickery step, so we either choose to trick him or not. If we do, like Mickey said, you skip the reward and you don't have to even fight him. So that actually is on the flow chart where it says pay trickery cost, and then now you're in the hunger step. But we're not going to trick him, we want to fight him.
Right.
So when we go to fight him, we move to the battle step, and for the battle step, you are going to get an action, and then the monster gets an action, and then you get an action, and the monster gets an action, and it just keeps going back and forth until one of you are dead.
So if we've engaged the monster and we are going to battle it, then this response is going to happen.
Yep.
Okay, and the response of this guy is, if you have any wood or metal at the beginning of the battle step, which is right now, Kobold attacks once and gains a +1 to all combat rolls. That means that this you basically, if you didn't have these resources, you could create an infinite loop, because if he gets to go first over and over and over again because you don't have the resource, that would be stupid. So anyways, that happens one time. You go into the attack. He'd get to attack once if he didn't have anything. And then throughout the whole battle, he will maintain the +1, though, because that's just all combat rolls means every time he takes a roll.
Yeah, the free attack is pretty much a
one-time thing, yeah.
That happened at the beginning of the battle step, so we resolved that effect. So now it starts with us. So we get to choose an action to take, and we have 3 choices. We can either attack with a weapon, we can take an action that is not a travel action, or we could skip our action. So those are the 3 things you can do during a battle.
Can you tell me if the Brawler's got anything that I could possibly use?
After a monster's combat roll, re-roll. After losing a small effort to a wound, reduce it by 1. And after choosing a wounding attack, spend 2 small efforts to increase damage by 1.
Alright, so doesn't really look like I don't think I want to do any conversions against this guy. So I'm pretty much just going to skip my phase. Unless Jeb thinks of something I can do.
Oh, because you're assuming he ambushed you.
Oh, I thought that's what we were playing.
No, I thought we were doing the other one where he didn't, but that's fine. Yeah, so since the ambush effect went off, attacking him is nothing. Mickey doesn't want to do the other thing, so he's skipping. So now to the kobold.
Okay, kobold rolls.
For the monster, all you do is roll the die. Whatever the result is, you do what it says.
So he gets a 1, and that's no effect.
All right.
So he missed me.
That was his turn.
Now it's my turn. So I look at what I can do with my weapons card. Now we haven't talked about this yet. So on all the weapons cards, they have efforts and what the efforts do. Okay. So this one for bare hands, if I have a
he can spend a large effort to break one of the shields.
Right.
Or he could spend 2 small efforts to do 1 damage.
Or I could spend 2 medium efforts to do 3 damage. So I have no large, which I don't need, and I have no medium, which would be nice, but I don't have them.
And there's one rule that we haven't mentioned yet, that if the monster did have a shield, you cannot do any wounds to him. You have to get through the shield first.
Yep.
But since this monster is a weak one, it has no shield, so he can just straight up go for the wounds.
So I'm going to spend 2 small efforts, 1, 2, to wound him. Jeb will move the wound counter down.
Now, Mickey has an ability called Power Through that in response, after doing a wound attack, he can spend 2 extra small efforts to increase the damage by 1.
Which I will do because I'm not going to use that cube for anything else, and they do get refreshed. So I am going to spend the 2 more small efforts to reduce him by another wound. And then this cube comes off that card to show that I have no abilities left on that card. Okay? The reason I would probably want to do that, just as an aside, is because they can take efforts for me. I want to use them before they take them away, so that I know that I'm going to be able to kill him, but I haven't killed him yet.
Right, so you did your attack, so it's back to him, so he rolls.
He got a 3 that time. So he will inflict a wound, which loses a small effort. So that goes down to 7.
Yep, and back to Mickey.
And then I will spend 2 efforts to do another wound.
And look at that, it hits him at 0, or gets him to 0.
So as you can see, the combat mechanism is really pretty easy in this game. There's no math, there's no anything. It's just
all back and forth.
It's all back and forth, and it's all spending your resource. You're the one who has to spend resources to manipulate killing these guys.
Yep.
Okay?
And in a difficult game, the monster would get his turn before you.
Right.
So we were playing
normal.
Alright, so Mickey defeated the monster. So it says, were you able to win? So yes, we go to the reward step. And it says, receive the listed reward
including a new skill card. Now, one thing to point out is that it says receive the rewards including a new skill. So some people, like the way you read it, kind of sounds like you get everything on this card plus a skill.
This is just a reminder
right.
to take your skill card, not an extra skill card.
So you're not getting 2 skills.
Right. Every single monster card has that skill card, that skill symbol. All right. So start off. I get a cunning. I get a medal. I get 2 small efforts. And then I get the skills. So how do the skills work, Jeb?
You will draw 2 skill cards, and you get to keep one of them.
Right. These are pretty cool. I ended up picking Stoic and Survivor. All the skills are pretty unique, and I will read you these 2, and then we'll decide what we're going to take. So as a Survivor, it would give me a passive ability that says ignore all threaten, confuse, and confuse effects in combat. So sometimes when you look at these, this guy doesn't have any, or yes, none of this one. But there'll be a bold word that either says threaten or confuse.
Yeah.
I would get to ignore them.
Yep.
Okay. And it gives me a response. After you rest during the exploration step, you may spend a wood to gain a medium effort. So that's an anytime thing if I took that one. And then Stoic is a passive ability, and your requirement to eat is reduced by 1. That's pretty nice. Okay. At this point, I have no food, and I know that the food stage is coming up. So this is really nice, but I'm going to bypass on, so I don't have a ton of small effort. So I'm going to take the Stoic, and I'm going to put that right above the skill pile to show that this is the one I have. And I will either put this off to the side or under the pile, because you probably won't run through the whole thing anyways.
Right.
Okay.
All right.
So that's now active.
All right. So you did all your rewards.
I did.
So now you are in the hunger step. So at this point, you figure out what level you're at. So Mickey's level 1. And that is how much food he needs to eat for the hunger step.
I believe, and I don't know why they word it like this, maybe it could get mixed up later, but I believe the way that the wording is you look at the monster level that you just defeated. Oh. And that's how many food that you're supposed to eat. Which, if you wanted to make up a game and just shuffle monsters...
That's true, yeah.
Come across the first
you hit a
6 you see or whatever, right. It would make the game extremely difficult if what you just said happened with not having any time to go through stuff. But if I remember correctly, that's the way the rules are written. When you would ever be outside your level, I don't know. But anyhow, so like Jeb said, I'm level 1. So what do I do for level 1, Jeb?
You need to eat 1 food.
All right.
So if Mickey had 1 food, he would literally just move that down 1, and then for every food he eats, he gains a small effort. So he ate a food and went up a small effort. Right. However, Mickey did not have food. So what happens is, for every food you eat, you are going to lose a certain amount of effort. So the first food you don't eat, you go down 1. And in this case, that's all Mickey would go down. Right. But if it was a higher level, the next food he couldn't eat would be 2 effort, and then the third would be 3 effort. So it gets worse the more food you don't eat.
But since I did take the Stoic, my food is reduced. What we just went through was if I didn't have this card.
Yeah.
And I don't get to gain an effort for eating. However, I don't lose an effort because I didn't eat either. It just means I'm a pretty hardy person, and I'm able to not eat and maintain the level that I'm at. So I'm safe for this round.
Once you do the hunger step, you're going to ask yourself, are you still alive? So yes. Was the monster you defeated level 4? If it was, then you win. But if it wasn't, you do this refresh kind of step. And for the refresh, it says,
Advance to the next level. You're going to fill your character ability bar up to your current level. So now we're on level 2. So 2 cubes are over there. Discard any active conditions that you have.
Don't have any.
You would apply any conditions that you gained. So if during the battle it said gain a condition for the next level, now you would gain it.
So, for example, if I had rolled trap during that battle, it says gain the crippled condition for level 2.
Yep.
So notice it's saying that you're going to get it forward. What Jeb and I like to do, we like to go through the conditions, find the card so we don't forget, put it out in front of us basically tapped, or however you want to do, so that we know it's not active right now, but we also know we're going to get it as soon as we start. So we would kind of do that during the refresh phase.
Yep. And then the last thing in the refresh, you're going to discard the monster. Alright, and then once that's done, it says go back to the preparation step. So we go back up to there, and we do it all again for level 2.
Over again. So that's the mechanics. If you want to see it more in action, watch us play 10 minutes of the game during the playthrough. Just, you know, some things to note. Notice that your efforts end up going, now this has to be built back up, but you do have a little bit more time searching through this deck to find some more elements. What we just showed you was strictly mechanics. I didn't go through all the encounters like I should have. I should have had some more resources and things like that. Just wanted to point those out to you, that we just wanted to show you mechanically how everything worked. That this isn't exactly a great picture of how round 1 probably would have gone on this side of the board. That's all.
And then the last thing that we did not tell you was how you die. So we showed you how you win, but when you die, the way to die is that you are at 0 effort, and you have to lose an effort while you're at 0, and if you cannot pay for that effort, then you die. Right. So you can get down to 0, it's just once you lose another one, you die. And then another thing is that if this is what the board looked like, no small effort, 2 medium, 2 large, and Mickey loses 1 effort, so he wouldn't die because he still technically has effort. He would just have to pick one of these and go down 1.
That's so awful.
And yeah, the reason he says that is because you would have to spend 4 small effort to get one of these, but now your
the conversion rate is you still use this, but at least it doesn't cause you to die. Notice that, you know, Jeb said whenever you would have to spend an effort. So it's basically the 2 ways to die, or you're either going to die in combat from taking wounds that steal your effort, or you're going to get to the food phase and have to eat, and you're going to die of starvation. Yep. I don't think there's any instant death or whatever. There are some conditions that cause wounds too. So yeah, outside of like at the start of your turn, you have to lose an effort that could kill you. So things like that. There's a few different ways, but it's not overly complex in the ways that you could go below 0 and die. So that's pretty much mechanically how the game plays. If that didn't make sense and you're not totally quite clear, like I've said a couple of times, I think you'd be perfectly fine watching us go through a couple phases. Keep in mind, we've already recorded the game, and the only thing, I think, the big mistake that we made is we actually did not do the eating of the food properly.
We ate the food, but we didn't gain
We didn't gain efforts when we ate the food. It didn't make a huge difference with the character I played, because a lot of times I was avoiding at least 1 food, so I didn't have to take the big penalties. But I also lost out on some effort that, when it got hairy, would have been really pretty nice. So, you know, plus sometimes effort is a resource in the encounters that you need to spend to get something. So, with that being said, you can watch the playthrough, and then you'll realize you'll catch the things that we did wrong. But for the most part, mechanically, you'll be able to see how everything flows. If you do like Jeb was doing, go down that flow chart, what, maybe 3-4 turns, you'll be set, I think.
Yep. So I think that's everything. So we've got a game set up next that we'll play for.
Yep. And it will be both of us, you know, even though it's a solo thing, you'll hear us both talk, and Jeb will be the monster, so to speak.
I literally just roll a die.
Yeah.
So.
And moves his side of the cubes. That's it.